Alrighty, cherubs. So we're going to continue and wrap up the High Italian Renaissance today, the Cinquecento, and we're going to move over from Rome, and we're going to head over to Venice. So Rome is kind of center west edge of Italy, and Venice is in the upper right-hand corner, the upper eastern corner of Italy. So Rome's down here, and Italy is up here. Italy. Venice is sitting kind of right here. So Venice is going to be this kind of trading hub for much of the eastern Mediterranean Sea. So they're going to be this very powerful state and develop a style that is uniquely their own. And because they're surrounded, Venice is the city on the water, because they're surrounded by that water, their art is going to look different because their surroundings are completely different. Okay, they're not going to be influenced so much by the sculpted look of ancient Rome as they are going to be influenced by the softness of the water. All right, so they're going to be working with oil on canvas and wood and they're going to be getting that influence from trading with Flanders up north. All right, they're going to focus more on, again, the color rather than creating these sculpted forms. We're going to take a look at a side-by-side here in just a second to show you what that means. In Rome, they're going to focus a lot on historical scenes. Okay. In Venice, they're going to be more lyrical scenes, more scenes about beauty, more scenes about poetry and about art itself, mythology, rather than straight history scenes. Okay, so that's what poesia painting means. It means it's paintings about poetry, not about poetry per se, but about the lyrical qualities that poetry embodies. All right. So again, contrast with history paintings, we're going to be in Venice. History paintings are what you're going to be getting more in Rome. In Venice, you're going to be getting more kind of these fable scenes. Okay. Their look is going to be lyrical and sensual. And I know that doesn't make sense until we take a look at some examples. Okay, and the concrete narrative and the subjects are really hard to nail down. So, for example, in Rome, in Western Italy, you can see very much like, okay, this person represents this person. This person is Plato. This person is Judas Iscariot. You can go through and identify the characters very easily, and they want you to do that. In Venice, that's not the case. Okay, the identity of the figures is ambiguous. They also want to create this sense of the pastoral. And what that means is that they're trying to create this sense of the country rather than the urban centers. So, for example, this is a painting by Giorgione, and we're getting versus Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam. Now, you can see again that the emphasis in Michelangelo's piece is on the line. It's on that form, that very heavy, solid, sculpted look. Also in Michelangelo's, where the emphasis is on those figures, because again, he paints like a sculptor. In Giorgione's, the emphasis, while the figures are there, the emphasis is on the land, okay, the countryside. And that's what he's showing us here. And again, it's very soft. You see the softness of it, the softness of the colors, the beauty of the lyrical nature. It's almost like a soft tune being played on a lyre. Okay, hopefully you can see the difference. There's no if Michelangelo's had a sound, it would be the brass section. Okay, with lots of drums. This is the woodwinds and the strings. Hopefully that comparison makes sense to you, that it's soft and sweet and lyrical and moving and gentle. Okay, and that's kind of what you're going to see in Venetian art. So, for example, this is a painting that hangs opposite. It's a Venetian Renaissance painting. Has the misfortune of being hung on the wall opposite of the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, and it's absolutely enormous. It's 2 stories tall. It's this enormous painting, and it's the Marriage of Cana. So you see Jesus here in the center, but this is a Venetian style picture. The setting is super important. Okay, and they are using the linear perspective that is happening here, but the emphasis, look at the characters again, are soft. There's a softness to them, there's a roundness to them, there's a liveliness to them. Think back to the School of Athens, how this is different than that. It's more crowded, they're more alive feeling, they're not so staged. And that's the difference you're going to get between the Venetians and the Romans. Okay. So again, one more time, emphasis on that line and that form, that sculpted look here in Rome and history subjects versus soft forms and the emphasis on bright, powerful colors and poesia. Those myths, those fables, those legends. The painter that we're going to be looking at is Titian. It looks like Titan. It's Titian, okay? Now, Titian is going to paint for us, well, not for us, but he's going to paint this, and it's called the Venus of Urbino in 1530. And if we take a peek at this, we can see that it's got this great complicated, it leads your eye down and back and around in this spiral, and hopefully that sounds familiar because that's exactly what it is, okay? The subject matter is a nude, a reclining female nude. Who she is, that's the question. We're not sure. The story goes that she is a girlfriend, a courtesan. We're not sure. The story also goes, depending on your sources, that the Duke of Urbino is getting married, and so he commissions Titian to create this piece for his wife to be, as a way to indicate this is how to be a good wife. Okay, and it's going to be seen by lots of people, so it needs to be as beautiful as possible. Again, that's the story. We're not sure. There's not a definite there's not a definite provenance for this picture, and so it's kind of up in the air. So take the history as you will. So what I'm talking about, the identity of Venetian paintings is hard to nail down. Case in point. Now, if we take a look at her, though, now she is again, look at the softness of the whole picture, the softness of the colors, the richness of the scene. That's very Venetian. Okay, this isn't one of Michelangelo's ladies here. This is very, very soft. She's looking at us directly, but demurely. She turns her head. Her face is turning away from us, but her eyes flick back up at us. So she is looking directly at us, and she's engaging with us in that way, which is unusual up until this point. And henceforth, influenced by Titian, this is going to start to become more normalized. You see her, she's reclining on a bed. She's holding flowers. Okay, the brightness of the reds, Titian is known for his use of red, and the brightness of the red is going to balance each other out. You see in the background, you see the dog sleeping on the bed with her, and you see in the background a maid and a child, and they're going through a chest in the back, possibly like a hope chest, dowry chest of that, something of that sort. Okay, so a good wife produces children. Again, it can be interpreted in this way. Now, the Venus of Urbino, it's called the Venus to make it safe to look at. Okay, it's obviously very sensual. It's meant to be sensual. sensual mean it's meant to appeal to your senses. Okay. Overtly sexual, but it is meant to be sensual. Okay. And that's kind of the point. But to make it safe, like, ooh, should we be looking at this? Ugh. It's Venus, so it's okay. That's how they get around it. Because clearly she doesn't have any of the trappings of a goddess. None. There's no like mythological figures, even though that's what they're known for here in Venice. But he demystifies the picture. Like there's no like, flowers or the wind or anything. It's just a house in Venice. But it's Venus, so it's okay. And that's kind of the tongue-in-cheek point. This picture becomes very important in the history of art in that it serves as the kind of the jumping off point for this scene to happen again and again and again and again and again. The reclining female nude becomes a trope of Western art, and it does so because, in large part, because of Titian and because of this picture. We're going to see other people copy and be influenced by this piece specifically, and you'll see it and you'll think, well, obviously, okay, obviously these later painters are pulling influence from Titian here. Okay, so again, it becomes that very it's important because of its influence on the canon of Western art. So here we have her again. See how it is arranged in this spatial spiral. Okay, that's the point. He's doing that golden section trick again. All right, so I'm going to link these two videos up above and in the description below so that you can give these guys a watch to learn just a little bit more. They're going to present to you some of the theories and present them as fact, but again, just keep in the back of your mind that it is conjecture. Like it's the stories that kind of accumulate along with the picture, but it isn't fact. Whoa. Nope. Okay. So again, that dog, I mean, you can interpret like we did up in Northern Europe. You can interpret all of these things in a multitude of ways. Perhaps they just owned a little toy dog, a little pet dog. Perhaps it represents marriage fidelity. Perhaps, ooh, the dog's asleep. So what does that say about marriage fidelity? You can interpret it in a bunch of different ways. The tree growing in the background possibly means like the growing marriage, or it's just a pretty pot, a pretty plant in the window. Again, you can interpret these things in a bunch of different ways. But just know that the Venus of Urbino is couched as safe art because even though it is clearly not, think back to Botticelli's Birth of Venus, where it was clearly about the birth of Venus. This is a nude female couched in the terms of Venus to make it safe viewing. And it is hugely influential in the history of art. The reclining nude, the idea of couching a nude as a Venus, as well as the soft lyrical and the beautiful nature of it. Okay. The beauty of the female form. And that's what this picture is about. And that's the Renaissance, okay? But that's not all. kind of the mid century, things are going to start to change, and people are still going to be painting in this Renaissance style for the rest of the century, okay? But then there's this new style that begins, and it's an exaggeration of what's happening in the Renaissance. It's done in the stylish of Michelangelo, and Michelangelo is actually even going to dive into this style himself. So if we think back to the Last Judgment, how the figures get distorted, the heads are kind of too small, the bodies are really elongated, and if you look close, they're just really, really exaggerated. That's mannerism, okay? And he himself dips his toes into this style. Mannerism is a style in which I'm going to link this video up in the above. Mannerism is a style in which it looks on the surface Renaissance-y, but look closely and you'll see that it's exaggerated. All right. You'll find that the bodies are elongated, that they are twisted in strange and odd ways, that there are too many limbs. The whole point of mannerism is to make the picture look not okay. They're saying, okay. Now, if you've ever been in an art class and you've done the linear perspective drawings, it's cool, but it also gets quite tedious. It gets, you're making art to a formula, and it gets old real quick. And the Renaissance painters are going to decide, like, yeah, this is great. Okay, it's cool, but what else can we do? We're not bound by math. And that's where mannerism happens, okay? Because they're going to start to be like, what else can we do with this? And so they're going to start to exaggerate it and not be slaves to the math, but rather to the idea of elegance and beauty and just to be pretty. So in the scope of Western art, we've got the thinky and the feely, and we keep going back and forth between those two. And sometimes art goes off the rails and is neither. And it sails off into outer space and it turns pink. And this is our first example. Okay. So this is what mannerism is. It's going to be in the manner, the style. It's about style, the style of another artist. Okay. And it's going to overlap with that high Renaissance. So in the Renaissance, it's about balance. It's about symmetry. It's about reality. It's about observation. It's about order. Mannerist pictures are about artifice, artificiality, lies, exaggeration of color and form. There's a restlessness, there's an instability. Like in the Renaissance, you had the forms that were just like the triangles, the equilateral triangles, okay, because it's a very restful form. It's restful to the eye. In mannerism, they're going to be anything but. You look at the figures and they're like, but it's not done creepily. It's pretty. And that's the point. It's supposed to be elegant and pretty, but they exaggerate it to make it so. But it's unstable. And you'll see that here. The Reformation is beginning up in the north at this time. The Counter-Reformation is starting to begin. So here, for example, is a dome. It's a ceiling that's painted in a Mannerist style. And if we zoom in on a section, you see the concourses of angels that are swirling around. And again, it's meant to be beautiful. But let's count heads here in this cacophony of angels here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in this mass right here. So 4. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, possibly 12 legs. Right? Okay, so assume this leg is attached to this arm, but so I assume these two are attached, but how does that work? Like it doesn't make visual sense. And is that I don't know. Okay, we have this figure here and this bum here, and what? It doesn't make sense. And that's the point. Okay. Here we've got the Venus of the long neck. It's called the long-necked Madonna, not Venus, Madonna. We get the Madonna of the long neck. Now, if you look at this figure right here, okay, this person's like hip and thigh is right here in their abdomen. Like their leg is coming up here. What? And we're getting again this kind of Scooby-Doo stacking. It's not really stacking. They're like just these faces that are like crowded into this picture that doesn't, and it looks a lot more real than a medieval Gothic stacked picture, but it kind of has that same feel to it. And if you look at Mary, her neck is enormous. Her neck, like human necks aren't designed like that. And if you look at the baby is like, I mean, it's like this 30-year-old kid. Like, it's this 30-year-old baby. Like, what's the deal with this baby? He's huge. Now, check out the guy in the background. Is he in the background? Or is he just really small? Spatially, it doesn't make sense. We're not informed we're not given any other clues other than his size that he's supposed to be far away. But then if we look up, okay, we've got this row of columns here in the back. You can see the multiplicity of shadows from the columns, okay? But when you look up top, there's only one column. And it's just a column. It's like not attached to anything. It looks like a smokestack. Like what's happening here? It doesn't make any sense. It sure looks pretty, but that was the point. So do you see what I'm talking about with artificiality, with artifice, with exaggeration? That's Mannerism, okay? On the surface, you think, oh, Renaissance. And then you look closer and you're like, wait a minute. This isn't, yeah, that's what we're doing. So in this, the piece that we're looking at is the Entombment of Christ, which itself is kind of funny because it's called the Entombment, but there's no tomb. It's just more of a lamentation where they're carrying the deposition. They're pulling Christ off of the cross and are taking him to be buried. Okay. The artist is Pontormo, and it's 1525 oil on wood. Now, first of all, hopefully you notice the pastel colors instead of like the real strong colors that Michelangelo, Raphael, Titian is giving us, that it's these very soft pastel colors. And again, what I'm telling you is that sometimes when art goes off the rails and it's neither thinking nor feeling, it just kind of goes off, it turns pink. Here we go. We start picking up these pastel colors. Okay. Now you see the figures carrying Christ. Here's Mary, and she's being comforted by her friends and by other figures. But again, you can see the artificiality of it. The figures are crouching in ways and on feet that are too tiny. Now, Jesus was a 30-year-old man. He was 33 when he died. And I can't imagine trying to carry the weight of a dead 30-year-old man on my tippy toes, like this pink figure down here is doing, or on these little tiny delicate feet. It doesn't work. Okay. I grab the pointer. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. And again, let's count arms. So this figure, this is his arm. And here's Christ's arm. I think this is his arm. But then we've got this figure here. Is this her arm? Or is it her arm? And where's her other hand? What's happening? Again, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The figure up here, is she an angel? Are these two angels? How are they there? Are they flying? Or are they just on higher? Again, we're not told. Mary herself looks like she's weightless, like she's floating, falling through water. That she's got this weightlessness to her, and she's just like flying backwards, in an underwater scene and her robes kind of float up and around her. again, this weightlessness. And you see that the center now, normally in the Renaissance composition, think back to the Last Supper, think back to the School of Athens, think back to, any of the pictures we looked at. And the subject matter was smack dab in the middle. Here, our subject matter is our eye is not a triangle at all. It's a donut. There's a hole here in the middle with no subject. There's nothing there. Where we catch our eye is caught by the pink, and it's brought down by the forms, by the swirling mass of forms, and we catch Christ's eye or body with our eye, and we're carried along, and we get brought up and around, and we catch this pink in this arm, and we're brought up, and we see Mary's head, which brings us to these bodies up top and spits us back down and around. It creates a donut composition, which is kind of funny and unusual. Again, mannerism. Okay, not this restful, like symmetrical composition. It's this unstable, uncertain. It moves our eye in strange places and in strange ways. So this is Pontormo's Mannerist composition, The Entombment of Christ. You can see here in situ, and I'm going to go ahead and link this video as well, so you can give this a watch. Okay. There's no strong emotion, just yearning for the Christ. And again, it's called the entombment, though there is no tomb. They're just carrying the body of Christ. So no ground line. How is Mary aloft? How are those other figures aloft? There's a lot of bizarreness happening here in this picture. Its function is an altarpiece. So it does hang in a church and functions as an altarpiece. Okay. So this is Pontormo's The Entombment. All right. And these are our Renaissance, high Renaissance, and Mannerist pieces. Hopefully you enjoyed this little tour of Italy. We're going to pick up next time with the rest of the Northern Renaissance and see how the Reformation impacts art. Okay. Until next time, have a great day.